It has been a very interesting week in the world of KDE. Now, normally I wouldn't do a multi-topic video. Usually it's like one thing and I dig deep into that one. But most of the things I want to talk about, I don't really feel like they deserve an entire video unto themselves, but I still want to mention them. And firstly, I want to talk about the Steam Deck. So most of you probably know about the Steam Deck by now, and most of you also know about the Steam Deck's desktop mode. This is using KDE Plasma. What you may not have realized though, is even though KDE Plasma 6 has been around for, it's got to be like 2 years now, it's still been on KDE Plasma 5, and that's even though it is based on Arch Linux. Package-wise, there is no reason why they couldn't have used KDE Plasma 6. It's more of a, hey, we don't want to move up yet. But even though this has not yet hit stable, SteamOS 3.7.0 preview Pi Day. Desktop mode now ships Plasma 6.2.5. Now, if you know your Plasma versions, you would know this is still not the newest version of Plasma. It is quite a number of versions behind. But it is at least on the 6 series now, is at least no longer using the Qt5 build, the Plasma 5 build. It's at least in the modern era. Now, for the majority of Steam Deck users, is this really going to have that much of an effect on the way they use desktop mode? Not really. The jump between 5 and 6, especially like late 5, which is what the Steam Deck was running, is kind of minimal. Yes, there are new feature additions, but it's not like it's a massive redesign where everything is changing. It's a very iterative improvement, and everything's gonna just basically be in the same spot, but there's gonna be a couple of extra buttons. Another very small thing I want to mention is Jonathan Riddle, after the Plasma 6.3 series, is stepping down from release management. This is the entirety of what is said. There is not a direct reply to this message or anything like that. It's literally just, this has happened. So, yeah. But neither of these are the main story that I want to talk about. Instead, what I want to talk about, you know me, of course, it's something related to Wayland. So until now, X11 and Wayland support in KDE Plasma have existed within the same codebase, within the same repo. Now, you did have the option to compile the system and not include the X11 support, and some distros might go ahead and do so, but the majority are going to include both. If you're on Arch, if you're on Gentoo, even Fedora until very recently, if you're on Kubuntu, most of the time, X11 and Wayland is going to be included. But now it's going to be even easier to not include that X11 support. Now, during the KDE Plasma 6 lifecycle, X11 is not going anywhere. But this is something that had to happen eventually. Announced a few days back, KWin X11 and KWin Wayland split. The basic KWin split had been completed yesterday. This means that Plasma/KWin hosts KWin Wayland, this one right here, and Plasma/KWin X11 hosts KWin X11 now, this one right here. I'll leave those both linked in the description down below. Both KWin X11 and KWin Wayland are co-installable. They don't conflict with each other, so they can both be installed at the same time. When 6.4 is out, a distro can ship either KWin Wayland or both KWin X11 and KWin Wayland, depending on the distro details. E.g., is Wayland enabled by default? Does the distro require manual user intervention during the update process? Etc. Now, it's not mentioned here, but I would imagine you could probably also install just KWin X11 instead. Most distros are not going to do so. Most distros perfectly fine having Wayland around. But there are these distros forming, you know, the Devuin kind of distros that sort of exist to be contrarian distros, where it's like, I don't want systemd, I don't want this, I don't want that. And there's going to be distros that form that say, I don't want Wayland, and only stick with X11. Now, as I said, I'm pretty sure this is something that could already be done, as this was part of the discussion that Fedora had a while back about just dropping the X11 side entirely. The way they decided to approach that is a little bit different because they wanted to fully get rid of it, but they had to keep like a package around and someone's still maintaining it, but it's not part of the core system and it's not blocking on updates. So it's still technically there, but like it's not like their main thing anymore. But it's only a matter of time until it's fully gone from Fedora. I would expect Fedora to be one of the first ones to entirely drop a package just full stop and just put it in their third-party repos. Yes, there are probably like smaller niche distros which have already done so, but for a big mainstream distro, you know, they have to do things, even though Fedora is relatively fast, a little bit slower than something that has, you know, 10 users. Now, be sure to take note of the naming used here. KWin hosts KWin Wayland, KWin X11 hosts KWin X11. KWin and KWin Wayland are basically being treated as one and the same. KWin Wayland is the de facto standard now. This has been basically the case for a long time now, but now it's actually being done with the project naming. And regarding packaging, we suggest that KWin Wayland is still provided by a package called KWin, although of course the final decision is left to the distros. I would be very surprised if at least any of the mainstream ones didn't go and do so. Honestly, what I would probably expect if they didn't do so is KWin would become a meta package, and then you'd have the sub-packages KWin Wayland and KWin X11. But for a lot of the simpler distros that install things just out of the box for you, that's probably just going to be Wayland. I would expect something like this on maybe like an Arch or a Gentoo. One important thing is, despite the name, KWin X11 still contains traces of Wayland. This is mainly for auto tests, and to keep the difference between KWin X11 and KWin Wayland codebases as minimal as possible, so it's easier to backport fixes. Because at least right now in KDE Plasma 6, things are still going to be backported. But that's not going to be the case forever. KWin X11 is expected to be maintained until Plasma 7. No new features are expected to be backported. To be fair, the feature freeze has been in place for quite a while already. So it's still going to get security fixes. It's still going to have, you know, bug fixes dealt with. But it's basically been frozen for a while. This blog post here was made in 2018. So if you didn't realize that the X11 side was not abandoned, but sort of half of the way there, I don't know how you hadn't noticed in the past going on 7 years. Actually, no, it has been 7 years now since this was posted. Now, I know some people might freak out like, oh my god, X11's gonna be fully abandoned in KDE next year. No, it's not gonna happen anytime soon. As of right now, there are no actual discussions about when Plasma 7 is going to happen. There are things they want to have done before Plasma 7 actually comes around, but an actual date? No, not even remotely. This is kind of like speculating what's going to happen when GNOME moves to GTK 5. Yes, it's important to do so we have an understanding of what's going to happen, but it's still a very long while away. Now, for many of you, I know it might be easy to forget since you probably never used KDE before KDE 5, because that was around for 10 years. There were versions before 5, and right now, we're about 2 or so years into KDE Plasma 6, and sort of the main thing that's even going to decide when a Plasma 7 is remotely going to happen is the Qt release cycle. So between Qt 4 and 5, there's about 7 years. Between 5 and 6, there was 8. And Qt 6 released in 2020. So going by that same sort of model, I would expect Qt 7 sometime around 2027, 2028-ish, assuming it doesn't get even longer. And then by the time we see Plasma 7, it's going to be a few years after that. So probably, I would assume at the earliest, 2031. So, for any of you that still rely on X11, there's something missing in Wayland. It's not like this is going to be a problem tomorrow, next month, next year. It's still a very long way away, and that's like an early estimate. It could be even longer out than that. So there's still plenty of time for problems to be addressed. Now that doesn't mean distros won't drop things earlier. Again, Fedora, I would be very surprised if they still have a package available by then, and maybe some others are going to follow suit. Now, just going back to that blog post for a second, this was in 2018. Back then, the X11 side was considered feature frozen. Back then, this was a pretty radical stance because a lot of the things that we rely on today, like one basic thing, video capture through portals, wasn't a thing back then. You couldn't do it. There were video capture tools, but they were very desktop specific and massive nightmare. A lot of the protocols we rely on, a lot of the basic things which nowadays kind of just work, not a thing. Things have greatly improved over these years, and I have no doubt in another 6-7 years, a lot more is going to improve, especially now, as a lot of the very slow-moving discussions tend to be quite a bit faster moving. Now, some desktops don't get involved in those discussions, which tends to speed things up a bit more, but we are seeing a lot of problems actually getting fixed and not having to wait 5 years for a protocol. Sometimes it's still maybe a long time, like 6 months. And yeah, that's annoying, but it's a lot better than it used to be. This split is something that really had to happen, and frankly, I don't know why it didn't happen earlier. Probably just because no one sat down and did so. But Plasma 7 is still a long way away. Right now, I'm perfectly happy using Wayland on my system. I don't really run into any issues, at least using KDE, where I feel like I need to go back to X11. I haven't done so in at least a year and a half or so. But I understand some people might still have their concerns. Anyway, if there are things that maybe don't work for you on Wayland, or things you'd like to see added, or things like that, let me know down below. So if you liked the video, go like the video. If you really like the video, I'm tired. Become one of these amazing people over here. Check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Liberty, linked in the description down below. That's gonna be it for me, and okay.